I spent the rest of the day in the cabin. I pushed furniture up against both doors and used some boards I found in the tool shed and some nails from a crawl space to cover up the windows. The following 24 hours were a bit of a blur, as I didn't sleep a wink. I kept myself up by railing coffee and surfing the internet. I watched several comedies to try and keep my mood light. I hadn't heard anything from outside ever since I got back indoors. I tried to call my mother and my girlfriend several times, but my cell phone couldn't seem to find a signal anymore. I sent the emails letting them know that I was scared shitless and wanted to come home. I ate dinner, but honestly I didn't have much of an appetite, so most of it went into the trash. Fighting sleep was getting harder and harder, but it's getting dark again at this point, and I didn't want to let my guard down, especially at night. So I took a cold shower and remembered that long paper that my father left me. I wanted to see if he had written anything about this fucking cabin in there. Most of the writing was bullshit, just excuses about why he abandoned Mom in her time of need, excuses about why he never contacted me, even after he found me. There was a lot of gloating and bragging about celebrities he had met and places he had seen. He detailed his childhood, which was indeed mostly in Missouri. However, he grew up pretty far from here. I skimmed through the most of it until I reached the very last page. Here is the text in its entirety. In regards to the cabin, along with the envelope which contains this very document, you will find a set of keys. If my lawyer neglected to explain it to you, those keys will unlock the doors to my getaway cabin in southern Missouri. This place is very dear to my heart. As soon as I could afford to do so, I was sure to buy up as much of that land as I could when it went up for sale. I had the cabin built after my father passed away, as he loved to take me camping here as a boy. We spent countless weekends down at the lake, but the land on which the cabin is built was always our favorite place to be. My father and his 4 brothers used to go there in the 40s when they were young, so you could say that visiting the land is a bit of a family tradition. Now I understand you'll probably be apprehensive about sharing tradition with someone who was never part of your life, but I encourage you to at least spend a weekend there. Bring your friends or a girlfriend if you'd like to. I assure you, it's a magical place, and once you go, you'll never want to leave. By the time I was done reading through everything a few times, I realized the sun was already up and the birds were chirping. It was becoming unbearable to force myself to stay awake. I convinced myself that sleeping in the day was better than doing it at night. At the very least, I could actually see during the day. Night times are just so utterly dark this far into the wilderness. The tree people had been gone for a while now, but I really didn't want to go outside again. As such, I laid down and let the sleep take me. I honestly wouldn't know if anything happened while I was asleep. I slept so hard that I doubt a hurricane could have woken me from it. By the time I finally stirred late in the afternoon, feeling more refreshed than I thought possible, I got up and flipped the bedroom light on and took a quick shower. Dinner was my next order of business, as I was absolutely famished. While I ate, I moved to the computer and checked my emails to see if anyone had replied to me. Nothing at all. Did they not care? Why wouldn't they reply? Were they not getting my emails? My cell phone had no missed calls, no texts, no voicemails, and still had no service signal. I began to think about what was going on back home. I wonder what my friends were doing without me, or what my girlfriend was up to at work. I wondered if my mom slept through her alarms again because she was too wasted to wake up. I snapped out of my daydream and realized that I was standing in the kitchen all of a sudden, peering between the boards of the windows between the sink. I was looking at the woods again, staring at the mouth of the trail, almost as if I was trying to look behind it, to something deep in the trees. But then, I saw them. There were people there again, all standing in the trees, the same people as before, only there were a few more of them now. One by one, they began to step out from the trees, slowly advancing towards the cabin. This time, there was still enough sunlight to see their faces. They were just ordinary people, but they looked completely emotionless. Their clothes torn and filthy, and their skin bruised, dirty, and scraped in places. Unseen to me, one began to knock on the back door. As more of them reached the back of the house, they began smacking, punching, and kicking at the cabin. Some of them were clawing at the windows. At this point, I'd had enough. It was time for me to get the fuck out of here. I was finally 100% sure that what I was seeing was not a dream or hallucination. I was sure that whatever was in those woods wasn't some mountain lion or wolves or coyotes. These people were fucking with me for days, and now they are coming for me. I fought the urge that had kept me here with all the strength I had. I loaded up the shotgun again and began packing my things as quickly as possible. I was tossing my clothes into my duffel bag as quick as possible, not bothering with hangers or keeping anything folded. Phone, keys, wallet safely in my pants. Everything I had brought with me was in the bag, but something was missing. The papers. Dad's document. I couldn't tell you why I stopped to grab it, but I felt like I should take it with me. Remembering where I left it, I ran to the computer desk and found it face down. I grabbed it and did a quick peek through the front windows. Nobody was in the front yard. They all stayed in the back, just punching and clawing at the rear. Moving back to the bedroom, I flipped the stack of papers over to put it into the bag right side up. Then I noticed the red writing. Scrawled all over the text of every page was red ink, or paint, or even blood. I have no idea what it was, but as I began shuffling through them, I realized that every last page had the newly handwritten notes. You're not leaving. We're here for you. Come with us. The woods are waiting. Let her take you, child. Go to the trees. Embrace as soft as leaves. Punishment as hard as timber. Flesh as coarse as bark. There is no other refuge. The forest is our sanctum. These messages repeated each other at random throughout those pages. Except the last page. The page about the cabin itself. It only had one final unique message written across it. Welcome home. At this point, I threw the pages across the room and headed to the front door, bag slung across my back, shotgun at the ready. Just as my hand touched the knob, the knocking stopped. The silhouettes were gone from the windows. I paused to collect myself for a second, confused at the sudden silence. The front yard. They had to be in the front now. It was dark now, so it was pretty hard to see anything. Regardless, I peered through the small window panes at the top of the front door, and thankfully nobody was there. I pulled out my cell phone and activated the flashlight app. Placing it into the pocket of my button-down shirt, I jabbed a hole into the top portion of the pocket flap so that I could button it and keep the phone from moving or falling out. I made a fair improvised shoulder lamp. Readying myself to dart out the front door, I heard the impossible. The chair that was blocking the back door had begun moving itself into the kitchen, and the back door began to slowly open, creaking as it inched forward. I didn't even wait to see what was coming in. As fast as I could make myself move, I flung out the front door. There was a horrid, sour smell in the air, rustling in the trees again. The whispering voices were back, coming from the trees just like before. Behind the cabin, I could hear laughter and crying, louder than ever before. A chorus of horrible contradiction rang out in the night air, accompanied by the smell of death and the sound of sinister whispers. And it was all meant for me. I was running to the car with all that I had. I jumped over something in the yard as I finally reached the car. One hand opened the driver door, my other hand holding the shotgun to my shoulder, ready to unload. Fully expecting my car not to start, I felt relief when it actually did. Even so, that relief was quickly washed away by anxiety that I was leaving. Despite everything, my brain was telling me to stay. The scraping in the back of my head grew more intense. The shrill ringing became deafening. But I fought through. I kicked my headlights on and began backing up to turn it around. It was at this point my headlights illuminated what I had jumped over in the lawn. It was another ring, this one 8 feet in diameter. This one was made of wolves, deer, bobcats, mountain lions, black bears, and even an eagle that had a huge wingspan. Like the other rings, they were all dead except one of them. A buck was trying to raise its head, its strained breathing shooting small clouds of final breath into the cool night air. Blood glistened off of them, all in the shine of the headlights. Fuck all of that. I cranked the wheel and whipped the car around to face the driveway. I sped as quickly as I could on such a winding, narrow driveway. The anxiety was getting worse the farther away I got, but I had to fight it. My mind was having a fight with itself. Turn back. You have to stay. There's no reason to be afraid, one part said, while the other part of me just kept thinking the same thing over and over. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck every bit of that. It was becoming difficult to focus on driving. My hands began to shake. I just wanted to leave, to be away from this nightmare, but I also had to go back. I needed answers. My ears felt like they were bleeding. My brain was swimming. My vision was darkening. My whole body was shaking now, and it was hard to keep the car straight. My stomach was churning and my joints aching when the whispers came back, this time from inside the car. Or inside my head. Which one I still can't say for certain, increasingly lightheaded and convulsions becoming unbearable. Controlling the car became a serious chore. Suddenly the radio turned on by itself, and a familiar voice came over the radio through the initial static. "Come back to us. Come home." That was the last thing I heard before everything went dark, and the car careened into the woods.